I'm going to show you how you can use data to scale your trading offers so that you can hit days like this where you're making, for example, 12K, 4K, 8K, 8K, 4K, 4K, 10K, 12K, 12K per day. Now, this video is only going to be relevant for you if you're already making around 20 to 80K per month with a trading offer, because we're going to be talking about unit economics, financial modeling, numbers, all of that boring shit that people who make a lot of money coaching do. So if you're just making like 10K per month right now, just don't watch this, just save your time. It's probably not going to be relevant to you at all. But for the rest of you, we're going to cover the exact metrics that you need to be tracking and also what influences them so that you can understand exactly what you need to fix in order to actually crack that first 100K month. Now, if you're not at 100K yet, the reason why you're not is probably, first of all, you have shitty systems, you don't really have the right knowledge or the right team. But secondly, also, you don't have the right data, right, to actually find the problem. The problem is you're going in blind, right? You're trying to drive a car without headlights, and then you're just wondering, oh, why am I wrapped around the tree? Well, the thing about it is data won't fix your problems, but it will reveal them so that you can know what to actually work on and where to start searching for solutions. Just like headlights on a car, they won't actually stop you from crashing into the tree, but they will show you the tree. And in the same way, data will at least let you know where that tree is so that you can avoid it. So what we're going to cover is, first of all, which metrics do you need to track? What are the healthy numbers? And then if you're not hitting those numbers, what can you actually do about it if yours suck? But first, before you dive into that, you need to understand the difference between upstream and downstream metrics, because if you don't, none of this stuff is going to make sense. So imagine you and your friend are swimming in a river, and this river is going, for example, this way. And then, I drop some poison down in the water, like right bang in the middle of you guys. So the guy downstream, he's going to feel the poison, he's going to get fucked by the poison. Whilst the guy upstream, he's smiling, he's fine, right? And that's the difference between upstream and downstream. And just like the people in the lake, it's the same thing with metrics. So if you have something bad happen, for example, in the middle here, every metric downstream will feel the consequences of that variable, whilst every single metric upstream won't really change, right? Because of the positioning of the variable. Now, to give you an example with YouTube, so if someone is going to be watching like a video, for example, so obviously they're going to first click on a video, they're going to watch the video, and then they're going to like and comment. Now, if you have a bad title or thumbnail, for example, that attracts the wrong type of person who wouldn't actually be interested in that type of video or in the content itself, because of that, you might have bad watch time. Even though watch time and the title and thumbnail aren't really thought of as linked, right? Because the thumbnail and the title only serves to get that click, it still influences it because it's upstream, right? So because that guy maybe had different expectations of the video, but he still clicked on it, he might be disappointed with the video and then click off very shortly, and that might affect watch time. What you need to realize is that every single metric that we're going to cover today is not only directly influenced by the variables associated with it, but also it's influenced by every single process that that person took before it. And now let's talk about which metrics you actually need and which ones are kind of useless. So first of all, with traffic, this is going to be the first part of the funnel, so kind of like the top of funnel. First of all, with Instagram and X, you shouldn't really be tracking anything besides like views and setter metrics in the DMs, so like how many people the setters contacted, the response rates, etc., etc. Because let's be honest, like these platforms really don't serve any fucking purpose besides setting people and getting a few top of funnel views and getting a few lead magnet claims. So let's move on to YouTube. The metrics you should be tracking here. First of all, CTR. Now, really, CTR and watch time, you're gonna be tracking these two if you're trying to focus on your growth. Otherwise, you don't need to really track them every single week or month. But the thing that's gonna influence CTR, by the way, you have to have it around 8 to 10% if you actually want to grow, if you want your videos to get some exposure. The thing that's gonna affect them is obviously thumbnails, titles, and then also something which is not thought of as often is going to be the topic's awareness phase. So first of all, does the topic you're speaking about, or the thumbnail and title promise, does it actually match the interests of your returning audience? Because for example, if you're making videos about trading and then all of a sudden you make a vlog, a lot of people might not give a shit about the vlog because they're going to your channel about trading, right? And your audience is primarily trading. So that topic is making a big difference there. And then also you have to think about how many people are actually in that stage of awareness. So for example, there's going to be a lot more people who are open to watching beginner videos about trading, for example, than more advanced concepts, just because there's more beginners than advanced people, right? That's just logical sense. So the CTR is obviously going to be lower. Another example, this video, even if I made the best video in the world, this video would only get, you know, somewhere around the 5% CTR. Just because the audience is very small, like the amount of people, you know, making 20 to 80K with trading offers is not a whole lot. So the algorithm just has a tough time finding those people. Now, watch time, very important metric. This one is going to indicate mostly the quality of your content. And by tracking it, you can kind of see what resonated, what people liked, what people didn't like, when you maybe change something with the video. Now, what's going to affect is, well, first of all of this stuff, because it's upstream. Then the congruency between the hook and the title, or the intro and the title. Essentially what that means is when someone clicks on a video or when it pops up, they have a certain expectation from the title and the thumbnail. And now if your intro is about something else that they did not expect when clicking on the video, in other words, you did a little bit of a bait and switch, people will see that and say, oh, well, you know, I clicked on the video for one thing, but now this guy's talking about something else, so they just click off, right? That's what I mean by congruency. Also, does the hook resonate with the ICP's pain points, desires, problems, all that stuff? Your storytelling ability, so this one is huge, probably one of the biggest factors here. So how well you can reduce cognitive load, aka how much do people zone out when they're watching your video, so can you make information simple? Clarity when you're speaking, visuals, so if you have simple visuals that can represent what you're saying, using things like metaphors for pattern interrupts, stories, same thing. And just like we said, simplicity. Then there's also value and novelty. So does the thing you're talking about feel valuable and new? People have a big bias towards new things. They bias it as being more effective. Now with views, what's really going to affect this is just very simply viewer satisfaction score. So a composite of all of these metrics here, as well as posting frequency. So you should be posting around 2 times per week if you're trying to grow, and around 1 time per week if you're just trying to maintain your audience. Now, another thing that is often overlooked is going to be consistency. The algorithm will heavily punish missed uploads while it heavily rewards consistency. US percentage audience, so how many people of your audience are from the US? The KPI here is going to be 40%. What's going to influence this the most, and this is some real sauce here, most people don't know this, but asset classes. So certain asset classes like crypto, forex, and even a couple metals will attract a very poor audience quality of mostly Indians, Pakistanis, people from those Asian or African regions. Whilst things like CME futures, stocks, options, those will attract a more high percentage US-based audience of like 25 to 45-year-old men, which is what you want, right? These people have the highest LTV by a very high margin. So pick the asset classes that you talk about very carefully. Then also what you can do is IP blacklist. So blacklist all IPs coming from low GDP countries to not have the ability to actually access your sites, right? So your lead magnets, your opt-in pages. First of all, a couple of things this is going to do. It's going to clean up your CRM, so save your team time. It's also going to improve your pixel quality because it's not going to pick up people from low GDP countries who have a low cost per result, which in theory sounds good, but trust me, lower cost per result is not good. It's definitely not what you want. And then there's also a compound effect of people from those countries watching your videos, which means that if they get value from you, they are more likely to return to your videos, and then subsequently more people from that audience will watch your videos because the algorithm picks it up. And then this is kind of brutal, you know, kind of a black pill here, but partially your accent and also how you look. So like, I'll just be real, like if you're Indian, you're gonna attract Indians, right? Also, if you have like an accent, you're gonna attract people with accents. So something to keep in mind. And then I didn't just make this part up here. You can see the statistics here if you want to check them out. And then also something you want to be tracking. This is really powerful. Most people don't do this. Is you can track exactly where traffic is coming from each piece of content. So you can put a URL parameter via Google Analytics 4, and you can ask ChatGPT how to do this. I'm not gonna like explain the whole thing, but if you're not retarded, just ask ChatGPT. And you can actually see like from each specific post, like for example, the post on X on July 27th or 26th got this amount of people from the United States. And then not only views, you can also see opt-in rates, you can also see booked calls, and these parameters will stay in the CRM so you can actually attribute what types of content also convert people and not just get views. This is really important. So yeah, let's go into the second part, which is going to be the middle funnel, aka you actually getting leads. Now, remember, everything upstream, so everything that we talked about here is going to impact this part of the funnel. So it's going to impact mainly lead quality and also conversions. Now, in terms of landing pages, what you should be tracking is, first of all, for your lead magnet opt-in pages. So you should have opt-in pages, by the way, if like that's pretty self-explanatory. But you should be getting somewhere between a 30 to 50% opt-in rate, kind of depending on if you include phone numbers in there and what the lead magnet actually is. What's going to affect that is, first of all, the copy, obviously, and then also something that most people overlook is lead magnet market fit. So does the lead magnet actually appeal to your audience? Because if your audience, for example, is really interested in like ICT technicals, and then you hit them with, I don't know, like a psychology course, people just won't care, right? Because they're there for the technicals. So you have to match that with your lead magnets. Now for VSL conversion rates, you should be getting around 8 to 12%. And this is from people viewing the VSL to people submitting their application. What's going to affect it? All of the above. Is it mobile optimized? You have to remember that the majority of traffic nowadays is mobile. Lead quality, landing page copy, social proof, so not only the quality, but also the quantity. The more social proof you can have, the better you're gonna do with this. Obviously, the VSL is gonna affect it mostly. You can check the watch time to kind of gauge how effective that is. And then also the booking application, so how many people actually fill out the application, which in terms of that, it should be around 50% or more. Again, what's gonna affect it? All of the above. One thing that we found is more questions isn't necessarily bad. You can add more questions as long as they make sense. Also, your level of qualification. So the more aggressive you are, obviously, the less people are gonna get through. Kind of the rule of thumb here is if you're fully booked, be more aggressive. If your closers have too much time, open up that qualification a bit so that your closers can get some action. You wanna be getting what you can get, right? Beggars can be choosers. So yeah, in terms of questions, just like I said, more is not bad, but they must make logical sense. So you can't just ask a qualification question like on the first question. You should warm them up with like, what's your name? You know, why are you even interested in this thing? Like, what's the actual problem? Kind of hype them up a little bit, quiz style funnels, and then you can hit them with the qualification questions. Now, application disqualification rate, this is going to vary, but you should also be tracking it because it shows the quality of your audience. So this is quite important here. And then going on to email. So what you should be tracking is send rates, open rates, and click rates. For send rates, realistically, anything below like 95% is just terrible. This is going to be affected by you doing a proper warm-up on the email domain, you having a proper DNC list, so a do not contact. You're not going to want to send emails to leads that have been inactive for more than like 60 to 90 days. So that means that they haven't interacted with the emails. Then mainly, the main thing is just going to be sender reputation. So if you're using blacklisted words like marketing, scammer words, financial claims, CTAs, any type of money words, dollar signs, financial promises, earning potential, guarantees, that's all going to get you flagged and just fuck up your sender reputation. So be careful. You can ask ChatGPT to give you a list of words to not use. Open rates, so this should be around 30 to 40%. Obviously, again, all of the above is going to impact it, and also subject lines. So here, another tip, make it short, make the subject lines short, make them invoke some kind of curiosity, and you can hit these numbers pretty easily. And also, if these numbers are very low, that's a sign that you're probably landing in the promotions tab or in spam. So just check that out, make sure you're not landing in spam. Click rates, 3 to 5%. So obviously the copy, the quality of the copy, and then also congruency between the subject and the copy. So just like with YouTube, with the title and the intro, you want to have the subject be tied to the actual copy. Like you don't want to bait and switch people, otherwise people will click on the email, see that you just bait and switch them, and then they just get pissed off and they leave, right? In terms of the funnel metrics, what you should be tracking is obviously how many leads you're getting. All of the above is going to influence it, again, minus emails, because these are downstream, and then also quantity of CTAs, the quality of CTAs. And then another concept that most people don't talk about is banner blindness. So are you actually rotating your CTAs, or are you just spamming the same CTAs over and over and over again? Because if you are, what's likely to happen is people will get used to it and they will just skip it, right? Just like you skip when you're watching, like, for example, your favorite YouTube channel, and he has the same ad running like for the past few months. Like the first word that you hear of that ad, you just skip it. right? And that's because you've been trained to understand that, oh, that's an ad, right? So to avoid that, you have to mix it up. So if you're talking about technicals, you CTA to a lead magnet about technicals. If you're talking about psychology, for example, you CTA to psychology. If you're trying to tell people, for example, that what you told them in the video isn't enough to make them profitable, you CTA to the mentorship and so on and so on. You have to tie it to context. Then for how many calls you're actually booking, obviously you should be tracking this. And the booking rate, so the lead to booked calls ratio, should be around 10%. So that means if you got 100 leads, you should be getting around 10 calls. All of the above is going to influence it, along with calendar availability. This is really kind of something that most people ignore, but convenience is huge. Like most people hopping on calls for trading mentorships, they're in school, they're doing their 9 to 5s, so they don't just have all day. And if you don't make it convenient, they just will not book. It's very simple, right? So you have to open up the calendar as much as possible. Now, are you running retargeting ads? This is important to CTA them back into the VSL funnel so they can get them to book a call. Are you solving the ICP's main problem too early? This is very important. Most people that run low ticket and high ticket, both, they will have this mistake where they solve the high ticket problem with the low ticket product, and hence just remove any need for anyone to actually book a call or buy the high ticket. So you want to be careful of this. Then email sequences, obviously, your DM setting process, your dialing and your text process. So this is all setting. Follow-up duration, so how long does your setter follow up for? And then one of the most important parts, speed to lead, so how fast the setter can actually contact those leads. And with that being said, let's talk about the setter's pipeline. What you should be tracking is dials, pickups, call sets, and triages. Now with dials and triages, these two should pretty much be one-to-one. So you should be dialing almost every single lead unless they're really unqualified, or if somehow they slipped through and they're from like a low GDP country. With triages, these should also be one-to-one. So you should be triaging every single sales call. If this number is not one-to-one, tell your closers to get off their ass. If this number is not one-to-one, just hire new setters, hire more setters. Pickups, so this is going to vary a little bit. Same with your setting rates. I've seen quite different numbers here, but what's going to influence pickups is going to be the time at which you're calling. Are you calling in the morning? Are you calling in the afternoon? Number reputation, so just like with emails, there's also a reputation to your phone number. Speed to lead, so how fast you call them after they opted in, because you have to understand that most people don't realize or don't even remember what they opted into 2 days ago, 3 days ago. But if you call them very fast, right as they opted in, you have the highest chance of them actually picking up. And then also one thing I have to add here is your text message. So does your setter send them a text message before he calls them? This is very important. Call sets, so setting rate, all of the above obviously is going to influence it. The actual value of your lead magnet, so when they did opt in, were they satisfied with what they got? If so, they have a higher chance of booking a call, obviously. And then your setter skills, so how good at sales they are, that's going to obviously impact things a ton. Now, the last part, sales or the bottom of funnel, what you should be tracking is going to be show up rates. So this should be 80% or more. I see a lot of people, selling down for like 70%. Show up rates or even less. Now, I understand that sometimes when you're running like cold ads, you might get lower show up rates, but really if you do these things here, you should be hitting 80%. Like really there's no excuse for it if you have the systems in place. So one thing that most people fuck up here is they have their availability for too long in advance. So you should be keeping this to like 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, and maybe 5 days max. But at that point, it's only, in the scenario that you really are booking like 8, 10, 12 calls per day and your closer cannot possibly handle more calls and you have to book them out into the future and just hire new closers. So this shouldn't really ever happen. You should keep it at like, I think 3 is really the golden spot here. Are you running hammer them ads? So hammer them ads are just ads that pop up once people have booked a call, showing them social proof, framing content, answering their common questions. Same thing, email sequences, so like pre-call email sequences, pre-call resources, which kind of do the same thing here. And then the pre-call resource is just something that your setter sends them before the call for them to study and actually be prepared for the call. Text reminders, so don't overdo this. If you do, it might actually hurt your show-up rates because people can get annoyed that you're just spamming them. Triage rates, so you should be triaging every single person that books a call. This is huge. Because obviously if someone promises to, the person they're going to be talking with that they're going to show up to the call, they're more likely to show up on the call. Pretty self-explanatory. Confirmation page quality. So does your confirmation page answer common questions? Show social proof. Do you have like an infinity scroll of just social proof? And are you framing the call correctly? Do they understand that this call is important? This is all very important stuff. Closing rates, it should be between 25 and 35% realistically. Obviously, all of the above is going to influence it, especially the middle of funnel. So lead nurturing, are the leads actually ready to make a decision by the time they hit the closing call? Are they educated enough? Do they have all the information that they need? And have you, provided that value? Have you established authority? This is going to be really important. Obviously, the closer skill, the offer price, and then financing options. So some people won't be able to afford it. So if you have financing, this is going to be massive. So if you don't have it, like if you're making over 30K per month and you don't have financing, go sort that out right now. It's going to boost close rates. Offer deliverables. This is huge. Like most people just overlook this, but it is a big factor. Like, does the offer actually feel new or different to what most people are doing or what most people have tried? Does it address their common failure points that people have already failed with? Is it something that people even want? Like, some people overlook this step, and it's actually like the most important part. And obviously things like, does it reverse risk? Like, do you have some kind of guarantee? Now, if your closing rates are like above 40%, you need to be raising your price. That just means the offer is too attainable for most people. So you need to raise the price. If it's below 25%, just fire your closer. He probably sucks. Offer rates, if this number is anything below like 80%, you probably have either a big lead quality problem, but also because low quality leads are slipping through, it's also a setter-closer communication problem because the setter should be qualifying them. And if he's not, that's a big problem. Your cash to revenue ratio, so this is how much cash you collect as opposed to revenue. You should be having somewhere between like 70 to 80%. Now, just like with close rates, if this number is too high, that's also not good. If it's too low, that's also not good. So if it's too high, you need to be raising prices. Again, that means that too many people can afford it. You're not doing enough payment plans. You're not doing enough financing. And if it's too low, that is also a problem because especially with ads, you start to get cash flow problems, and that's a big no-no. So again, financing options, this is gonna influence things, payment plan flexibility. Do you have your salespeople trained to go and ask existing clients that are maybe on deposits or payment plans or something like that to get them over to PIFs using various financing and shit like that. Now, obviously, you should be tracking how many units you sold, cash collected, and revenue. For some bonus metrics, this is just something I want to touch on briefly. Regarding ads, like this is going to depend on what funnel you're running. There's a ton of funnels that you can run, but generally, you want to avoid looking at vanity metrics, and you want to focus just mostly on like CPA, AOV, CTR. Like this is going to tell you how quality the ads are, like frequency, how many times people have seen them. All of this stuff is important, but the problem is that most people get caught up with like imaginary numbers when it comes to ads. So just because it says a certain cost per results on that ad dashboard, that doesn't mean shit if you're not actually extracting cash. Like at the end of the day, all that matters with ads is cash in, cash out. So don't be like a retard and just like see the numbers go down on the dashboard and say, oh, that's great. Cost per result is going down, because most times the only thing that means is that your lead quality got worse and your pixel is deteriorating, right? So you don't actually want that. So do not be a retard. Don't change shit if your like imaginary numbers are high. Also, make sure that you're tracking ad traffic separately to organic traffic. Like please, for the love of God, like in your CRM, have some kind of parameter. You can set this up so easily, like in the meta dashboard. Just make sure you tag them in the CRM so that you know what traffic came from ads and you know the exact conversion rates on your landing pages that came from ads, as opposed to people organic, because that's going to be a huge discrepancy there. You don't want to put them into the same bucket. Just don't be lazy and go ahead and do that. Now, interpreting the metrics, this is really important because you can have all the metrics. I could give all of these metrics to a fucking 12-year-old and he would know absolutely nothing to do with them, right? So you have to understand how to actually interpret them. And the first thing, the most important part, is you have to interpret metrics with overarching context, right? You shouldn't be looking at anything in isolation because usually there's more variables involved than you think. So for example, you could have two identical funnels, and then one might be converting like 3 times better. And you just think, oh, you know, his funnel must be better, like his copy must be different. No, like he could have the exact same everything, but maybe the other guy just has a better YouTube channel, and because of that, you know, his nurturing potential is better. So don't look at things in isolation, always use your brain and use context. Also, keep in mind, leads don't just magically convert like instantly. There's always going to be a sales cycle. This is going to be a couple weeks usually. So anything that you change with ads or with your organic, it's only going to manifest in terms of results only like a few weeks, if not months after the fact. You also have to take into account sample size, and generally the more top of funnel metric that you're looking at, the bigger the sample size needs to be in order to make accurate decisions. Now, once you've written down all of these metrics here that I told you about, and you're looking at them, and maybe some of them are close to the KPI, you shouldn't be just changing multiple things at once. You should only change one variable so that you can actually isolate what made a change, right? Because if you're changing like 3 things, you don't actually know which one of those 3 things affected that result. And because of that, you didn't actually learn anything. So this is very important. But then also on the other side of the coin, if you're looking at these metrics here and let's say like your offer rate is just abysmal, you shouldn't be like changing one variable at a time. You should be changing multiple things at once and move fast, right? Because fine tuning is only going to make sense if you're already close to the target. Now, what I recommend is you keep a weekly log of all of these metrics. And the way you could do that is I have a couple templates for you here, which I use for all of my clients. So this is the KPI template, this is the closer tracker, this is the ads template, and I can actually send you over all of these templates for free via my IG or my X profile. All you have to do is go to my IG, follow me there, and just send me a DM with like templates or something, and I'll just send you all of the templates for free. And you can find all my profiles in the description. If you want to work with me, also you can just send me a DM. If you like the video, and you can also comment any questions. Have a nice one, guys.